Some crimes are so chilling that they leave an entire community frozen in fear. The case of Mary Mabel Rogers is one such story, a woman accused of murdering her own husband, Marcus Rogers, in 1905. The trial, the secrets, and the shocking verdict captured the nation's attention, but behind the headlines lies a story filled with tension, betrayal, and mystery. Tonight, on Unseen Crimes, we unravel the chilling truth behind Mary Mabel Rogers and the crime that haunted a town forever. Mary Mabel Rogers lived in what appeared to be a normal household in the early 1900s. Neighbors described her as charming and devoted, always polite and attentive to the needs of her husband, Marcus Rogers. Yet, beneath this surface of domestic bliss, subtle tension simmered. Arguments went unnoticed by outsiders, small disagreements that seemed trivial at the time, but in hindsight painted a darker picture of a troubled marriage. Every smile and every courteous word carried the shadow of underlying resentment, a tension that no one could fully explain. As weeks passed, Mary's behavior began to change. Friends noticed her pacing in the dimly lit rooms, speaking in hushed tones, her eyes darting anxiously toward the door. Marcus, too, seemed distant, spending longer hours away from home. The ordinary rhythm of their lives began to feel heavy, strained, as though the walls of their home were silently witnessing the unraveling of a once strong bond. It was a domestic storm waiting to break, a storm that would leave a trail of suspicion, heartbreak, and ultimately, death. One fateful night in 1905, Marcus Rogers was discovered dead in his bedroom. The initial assumption was that he had suffered an accident or a sudden illness, but the scene told a far more sinister story. Furniture was overturned, a vase lay shattered on the floor, and the slightest detail suggested a struggle. When the coroner arrived, the evidence pointed toward foul play, turning what should have been a quiet domestic tragedy into a case of national fascination. Mary's reaction added fuel to the growing storm of suspicion. To some, she appeared unnervingly calm, almost detached, while others described fleeting moments of panic and despair. Her recounting of the evening Marcus died was inconsistent, each version subtly different from the last. The townspeople whispered, speculation ran rampant, and the question that hung over everyone's mind was simple but terrifying. Could Mary Mabel Rogers, the devoted wife, have committed murder? The answer seemed to slip just beyond reach, deepening the suspense that would grip the community for months. Detectives immediately began piecing together the events leading up to Marcus's death. They questioned neighbors, friends, and relatives, seeking any inconsistencies or hidden motives. Rumors of secret lovers, mysterious absences, and financial disputes began to surface, revealing layers of tension that had previously gone unnoticed. Each fragment of evidence added weight to the suspicion surrounding Mary, casting shadows over her previously unblemished reputation. Investigators meticulously examined letters, personal correspondence, and financial records. Some suggested Mary was growing frustrated with her marriage, hinting at motives that were both personal and practical. Every small clue was scrutinized, and Mary's behavior was observed with unrelenting intensity. The psychological pressure of the investigation weighed heavily on her, turning her once private fears into a very public spectacle. In this game of shadows and scrutiny, the line between innocence and guilt seemed frighteningly blurred. When the trial of Mary Mabel Rogers began, the courtroom became a stage for one of the most sensational cases of the era. Reporters filled the benches, eager to record every word, every gesture, and every reaction. The townspeople crowded outside, anxiously waiting for news, while Mary herself sat composed yet tense, aware that the fate of her life now rested in the hands of strangers. Witness after witness took the stand, recounting arguments, strange behaviors, and moments of tension that had previously seemed insignificant. Each testimony built a narrative of possible motive, painting Mary as a woman who could have acted with premeditated intent. Her defense attorneys worked tirelessly, challenging evidence and questioning witness credibility, yet the prosecution's story of betrayal, greed, and murder gripped the courtroom, leaving both jury and audience hanging on every word. The prosecution argued that Mary's motive stemmed from a mix of personal dissatisfaction and financial gain. Marcus controlled the household funds, and Mary's frustration with her limited autonomy painted a possible picture of resentment. Letters discovered in the investigation suggested secretive planning and dissatisfaction, which the prosecution highlighted as signs of calculated intent to murder. Psychologists and experts were called to discuss Mary's character, describing her as capable of charm and duplicity, someone who could conceal her darkest intentions. Witnesses detailed arguments and suspicious behaviors, each account adding another layer of complexity to the case. The suspense escalated as the courtroom absorbed every revelation, wondering whether Mary had acted out of desperation or malevolence, and whether justice would ultimately be served. Mary's defense painted a very different picture. They portrayed her as a devoted wife, a woman misunderstood, and falsely accused due to rumor and prejudice. Attorneys highlighted inconsistencies in witness statements, questioned the credibility of the evidence, and reminded the jury of the need for reasonable doubt. They also emphasized Mary's humanity, her vulnerabilities, and the pressures she faced in a society quick to judge women who defied expectations. Emotional testimonies presented her as a frightened, lonely woman, possibly unaware of the danger she faced at home. Though compelling, the defense struggled against the weight of public opinion, and the suspense in the courtroom remained palpable, leaving everyone wondering which story reflected the truth. After weeks of testimony, the jury withdrew to deliberate. Outside, the townspeople waited, whispering anxiously about Mary's fate. Inside, jurors debated inconsistencies in evidence, argued about motives, and faced the heavy responsibility of deciding a woman's life or death. Each hour stretched, filled with tension, as the pressure of delivering justice weighed on every member of the jury. The uncertainty gnawed at both the community and Mary herself. Would the jury believe in her innocence or succumb to the persuasive narrative of the prosecution? Every passing moment intensified the suspense, as if time itself were holding its breath, waiting to reveal the outcome of a case that had captured the imagination of a nation. The jury returned, and the courtroom fell silent. Mary Mabel Rogers was found guilty of murdering her husband. The sentence was hanging, a grim fate that stunned everyone in attendance. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as spectators struggled to comprehend the reality of what had just been declared. Mary remained composed outwardly, yet her inner turmoil was evident in her quiet, restrained gestures. The verdict became a defining moment, not only in Mary's life but in the social consciousness of the time. Newspapers sensationalized the story, and debates about justice, morality, and the role of women in society ignited across the country. Mary became more than an accused murderer. She became a symbol, a tragic figure in a story of suspense, betrayal, and human frailty. Mary's final days were spent in quiet reflection. The walls of her cell bore witness to a woman confronting mortality, legacy, and the consequences of human actions. Prison life was isolating, filled with long hours of contemplation and fleeting visits from clergy and friends. Each moment was heavy with anticipation, suspense, and sorrow, as the reality of her impending fate became increasingly unavoidable. During these days, Mary reportedly expressed both fear and acceptance. Letters and personal notes captured her remorse and introspection, offering a haunting glimpse into her mind. The story of her life, decisions, and the murder that had brought her to this point became almost mythic, leaving the public captivated and horrified in equal measure. The day of Mary's execution arrived. Crowds gathered outside the prison, tense and whispering, while Mary faced her fate with a combination of courage, fear, and resignation. The gallows were prepared, and the final moments were both solemn and terrifying. When the sentence was carried out, it marked the end of her life but the beginning of a story that would echo through history. The Mary Mabel Rogers case remains a chilling reminder of the fragility of trust, the darkness that can hide behind normalcy, and the consequences of betrayal. Her story is retold as both a cautionary tale and a true crime legend, captivating audiences over a century later. If this story gripped you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because on Unseen Crimes, the next chilling story is never far away.